Good afternoon, everyone. This is the regular meeting agenda for the Community Redevelopment Agency for Monday, August 28th, 2024. Would you please call roll?
Yes, Mr. Ron Whittington, Mr. Thad Mosley, Mr. David McGraw.
First item on our agenda this afternoon is the approval of the meeting minutes from July 22nd, 2024. Are there any comments or changes to those meeting minutes? If there are none, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of those meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve minutes from Community Development Agency for Monday, July 22nd, 2024.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Next item on our agenda is courtesy to the floor to visitors. Is there a specific?
I think I'm about to receive a speaker card. So if you'll give me 1 second, Mr. Chairman, I will bring that to you.
Thank you. And let the record show that Mr. Ron Whittington has joined the meeting as of this point in time. To continue with our agenda, the courtesy to the floor for visitors, Kathy Hall, you would like to address the CRA? You have 3 minutes to address the...
That's what I'm looking for.
I don't know if that's going to be covered under staff report, but I will just ask staff if they have any kind of update on the electronic sign.
So typically during courtesy of the floor, we don't answer questions, but I know this is the second time we would come here and ask, so it's a little bit complex. That's actually being handled mainly through administration. They're the ones that have the Daktronics contract through admin. Our communications manager spoke with the representatives, I believe last Thursday or Friday. Was out of town for a work event, so I'm not 100% sure. And they were out there, I know, last week working on the sign, and they have, I believe, ordered parts for the repairs.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Moving on to the next item on our agenda, which is staff report.
Yes.
I'd like to turn this over to staff.
Yes. Up on your glasses.
Oh.
Sorry. We briefly discussed the idea of implementing some type of safety and policing grants for the downtown. The agency voted yes, they'd like us to discuss internally. The very next day, we set up those internal meetings. We have the internal meetings, and the reason we have these meetings is to get the perspective from the folks who actually see this on the day-to-day. It's one thing for us to make a recommendation and think we know what we're talking about, but they actually deal with this. And so we invited Chief Smith to come kind of talk to you guys about his thoughts and maybe what direction we can take and maybe look at this in a new light. So,
good afternoon, Board. I'm Gene Paul Smith, Chief of Police. It's a pleasure to be here. We met, it was Finance, City Manager, Taylor, and Heather, and we began discussing this topic. I initially, from the beginning, had some very serious concerns just about the premise of the initial way it was pitched. I had a problem, and so did the rest of the staff, with providing public dollars for a private entity for normal operating expenses. That was my problem with it. It doesn't pass the smell test to me, and that was my concern with, because it is it's a routine expense for a nightclub or bar to have security. Now, also, if you take this another step further, they are actually requiring security because the sale of alcohol and because of the density of the people they're allowing in. I'm not saying they're causing their own problems, but what I'm saying is it's an expense that they have to security, whether it be private security or police security or dishwashers or waiters or anything else in the normal course of business for a bar. And I had a real problem with providing public tax dollars for that. And I think the public would in these days and times in this environment. Part of my job is to protect the city and of course you all, and it would just look bad. And I checked around, there's nobody else that I know with the CRA or any other police departments where the businesses are giving supplements to their normal operating expenses. Further on, just for instance, what happens if Sonny Biko wants to hire someone for the hotel, which he does, or for a condominium in CRA for 4th of July to guard the parking lot, which they did last time, to keep people out of their pools and their parking lots. Then how do you go about picking and choosing, or is it just everybody? Is it the festival promoters, they get it too, because we've been short on security for them, or will they be allowed to get it? And then, once you get into the payroll piece, it gets a lot more complicated. The businesses would have to send us in some kind of receipt that they spent the money or a check, and then we would have to cut them a check. And it's just messy, and it's got a bad appearance to it. So what we decided, but we want to provide something for the businesses downtown. What we wanted to do was our suggestion. This is just one. To provide cameras on public property outside their doors, for instance, high-resolution cameras to help them run surveillance and record on the entrances and exits. They'd have access to it also, and they could show them checking IDs and doing all the right things at their front door. It could be security upgrades to the windows, doors, businesses, locks. So that way we're providing an incentive, but we're not providing for normal operating expenses. It's more like how we envisioned giving them a stipend or supplement to come in here and open their business. We would help them with a certain aspect of their business, whether it be physical plant or whatever. That's what we're looking for. Also, I don't think the sheriff's office, they're shorthanded too. And I don't think they're going to get that big of a response as they think they do. And let's face it, when they're down there, they're making a decent amount of money, and this is part of the cost of doing business, in my point of view. Also, in the past, y'all are aware of our budget. We went from pretty short, so now we're filling up quickly to where we may have to put the brakes on. We're only 6 down right now, and we got a bunch of people processing and the funds ringing off the hook. Now, with that said, I still have to get them out of training. I have to get them out there, but we are looking. It's funny the difference a month can make. I didn't sleep a month ago, and now I'm sleeping like a baby. So, so hopefully we'll be able to provide that service. We have a lot of new young people that want to get out there and work some extra duty, including some in training now, so hopefully it won't be as big as a problem as it was before. But just for instance, real quick, one last story. When JSO, when they have a football game or when they have anything at the arena, that is mandatory overtime. And it used to be they pay you a check, just like a vendor or give you cash. They don't do that anymore because they couldn't get enough officers to work. So what they do is they funnel the money to the sheriff's office. The sheriff orders them to work overtime, which he can do contractually, and they work overtime at the football games. It's no longer an extra duty job. It's part of their assigned in overtime. Just because there's not enough officers working down there, they're mandated to work on overtime. So all these big events they have downtown, most of them at the arena and at the stadium are mandated OT. So they're in the same boat as we are. And in the end, what problem are we trying to solve with the program as described earlier to provide a subsidy for reimbursement for extra costs of jail? So what problem are we trying to solve? And I don't think that's the problem we were trying to solve with the initial plan. So, questions?
Any questions from?
Thank you.
That's great.
Thank you.
I'm so there with you.
This is much better than the last meeting I was at. at the library. They call that the Beaches Watch Massacre.
No, that's perfect. Anybody else have any other questions, Francis?
Aye.
Thank you for your service, obviously. Thank you for coming in here today, too.
Yes, ma'am.
So I am curious, do you see the value add in us moving forward with the cameras and whatnot that would go at entry points? Because you guys would have access as well for your own investigations, obviously would be something that would be, or do you not see a value add to the police department for this?
I absolutely see a value add for the police department, see what's coming in and going out, absolutely. I do, and the camera system is working well, it's up and running, and we've used it numerous times, and it's been helpful in a couple of major crimes so far. But yes, I see that. You mean at the entrances to the bars and restaurants?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if it's a business owner would like to utilize something like that, it obviously would give you access. We don't have to worry, and I'm not an attorney, so I know we don't have our attorney here, but I'm assuming that anything we would do would have to be vetted through there, make sure we're not dealing with privacy issues.
That's my fault. I told the city attorney I didn't think there was anything on the agenda for him, so that's my
Yeah,
fault.
so
Sorry.
like,
Maybe
I'm
we've
just
been
making
there.
sure that like, cause obviously, cause it's outdoors, it's not private property
Sure.
at that point, right?
We
So
will
we
absolutely.
probably would not have to, we would, I just wanna make sure.
There's no expectation of privacy in the public place, but I understand them feeling uncomfortable about it. Maybe there'll be cameras that they can monitor, because they, by their extended alcohol permit, have to give us the video when we request it.
Right.
So I'm cool with that. I understand they don't want us watching their video feed. I'm totally fine with that. But certainly we can put cameras anywhere we want, public property, and watch that anyway. And that was just one example. I mean, like I said, it could be septet upgrades where the back doors, all these places at 3 o'clock in the morning need to be metal back doors with stronger bed bolts, subsidy to buy any of that stuff. I think that's the value add, you know, where we can justify to the taxpayer to where we're making it safer and we're not just giving money away. I think now, are the bar owners gonna like that? No, they want the money for the security. Well, I want a lot of things too, and that's not the way this works. We're taxpayer money, and I think y'all all agree.
Yeah, I agree with that. If it's something that does for public safety versus
Sure.
private business,
Sure. General public safety, we
Profit
can do it all day long.
I agree. Okay, I was just curious if it would be something we need to explore with the city attorney as far as privacy rights. Because you're gonna be putting it on a building that's not owned by us, and then,
There'll be a lot of things that need to go into this. I think our biggest thing, and the first thing we wanted to do after discussing internally and realizing, okay, there's a way to do this, it's not the way we thought, were to have a conversation with you guys, kind of make sure everybody was on board and comfortable with this new direction, so you guys kind of weren't blindsided if 3 months from now we bring you something, you're like, whoa, this is not what we agreed on. So now we will then again resume our meetings internally, and we'll work with finance, we'll work with the police department, administration, legal, and whatever we do moving forward, we'll make sure we've got all the teams involved.
okay, so I'm on board 100%, especially since we were talking about for, I don't know, a decade, it feels like, on alternative ways to help with policing downtown that's outside the box. I think this is a good solution to that.
And the program is definitely still alive and we're working on it. We like to say, we just want to let you know there's been a change because I think we're going to get some blowback, but, you know, that's, like I said, that's not the way this works. So,
I had a question regarding the obligation for the repair. Do we know if, or for the repair, I'm sorry, that's where I was before I came here. For the security, is this typically the owner's obligation or is it the tenant business obligation to provide the security? Do we know?
it is the tenant.
Okay, so when we know in each of these leases that it's actually the tenant's obligation to provide the security?
If you look at some of the nightclubs are owned by the person running the establishment, others are renting. So it's up to the business. You could put a clothing store in there and you wouldn't need security. The owner wouldn't have to provide security. Part of the wording of the alcohol permit basically says they have to provide some kind of security if they're serving alcohol. That doesn't mean you have to have a police officer out there all, the whole time. They want that there. They can provide we use the term bouncers or doormen, you
Sure.
know. Bouncers probably goes back to our time, but they call them doormen now. They have to provide, when you look at the totality of circumstances in a lawsuit or anything else, is this reasonable? Is it reasonable to have 400 people drinking alcohol with no bouncers and no police out there on Saturday night? Probably not reasonable. When you look at 10-person security staff with a police officer out front, that is reasonable, and it depends on the particulars of each circumstance, but nobody is required to do it per se.
And if they prefer, right, because I'm sure they prefer, do they have the ability to do that, to have an off-duty police officer at their own expense? Because I can see them wanting to have the physical presence of wanting to have an officer.
Yes, that is always an option, and the problem is we've been shorthanded, and the bars are challenging to work, and even for the,
Yes.
even for the pay that they're paying, it is up to them, but like right now, there are a lot of places are open down there, and there's no security, there's no officer there, they might have a bouncer, or if you're walking surfer, let's say, they might be checking IDs at the bar. You know, whatever's reasonable, and that's certainly reasonable in there now, not to have 2 police officers and a full door staff.
Okay, and then when it comes to with the cameras, in your experience, do they tend to be, is this gonna be preventative in nature, or does it tend to be, like you said, they have aided in solving?
That's a good question.
So,
It's tend not to be as preventative as,
Right.
more after the fact. Unfortunately, if you look at St. Patrick's Day, there was,
Right.
by the end of the night, the last shooting, there must have been 80 police officers down there, and the last shooting happened right in front of somebody. So as far as a deterrent with alcohol and people going to the clubs, it's usually not. If they want to act out, they'll fight us or fight the door staff right in front of us. And the camera's not the deterrent, but it certainly helps with the follow-through and the prosecution and everything.
Yeah, and I agree with dealing with public funds for private entities. My only question would maybe, I can't imagine it is, but is the security, because we're trying, right, to get other restaurants and bars and businesses to come in here, is the cost of the security of them coming in here, is this gonna be higher than if they were to open their business somewhere else, right? And if it is, you know, is it incumbent on, do we want to say, you know, maybe we want to subsidize maybe some of it to make sure that we have people coming here while also saying, I don't want to go there out of concern for the crime that's there, right? I would hate
That's a good,
another.
that's a good question. And when you say security, you mean at the establishment?
Yes,
So,
yes, yes, sir.
Well, generally, and I'll get to the crux of it, when JSO works a bar, they have to have 2. And that's 2 at about the same rate we're making. We only mandate 1. So when a establishment downtown doesn't have us and they want an officer, they have to hire 2 instead of just 1 of us. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I'm okay with 1 of us. We used to have all the bars covered by 1 person, and we could all respond in mass from all the other jobs. Plus we have also. Now, I will say it's going to get more expensive now because of our new contract and Jacksonville's new contract with labor, with a base pay rate.
Sure.
So, you know, no one's going to work for less.
Oh,
No one's going to go out there and work for a bar for less than their rate.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, to be very honest with you, we've had establishment owners offer us, somebody, chief will pay $100 an hour to get one of your guys. We love your guys. We want to work with Jack's Beach. We don't want to work with anybody else. And we said no. First of all, it's a bad.
You know, something I was just telling Heather is what we've seen, you know, it's not always one size fits all, but depending on the type of business that you have, it's a standard practice when you're having a major event, holiday weekend, and it is a bar establishment where your primary source of income and your patrons are primarily there to consume alcohol. I mean, even in like my hometown, my small town, when it's 4th of July weekend, there are officers at those doors. So it is, I don't feel like in most cases, if you're coming in, you know you're opening them, I don't think it'll hinder people from opening down here.
I have a little unique experience with alcohol establishments. I'm not going to share with you now, but in my youth, and I know what it's about. And they're profit driven. when you cycle the 2 million to 8 million people, and if I can figure out how to get 8 million people through a city a year in a bar district with no crime, I'd be on the lecture circuit for $100,000 a day. Telling people how to do it, probably wouldn't be sitting here. So, it's
Reduction, it's not, looking to improve.
Yeah.
And not,
and when you see downtown, the bar owners and restaurant owners do a really good job. I said that meeting before, they do a good job with security. Especially the they're worth a lot of money.
We're going to be looking at this issue a little bit further somewhere on our agenda in the next couple of months, and Chief, hopefully you'll be able to come back and join us during that conversation, and hopefully help guide us appropriately.
I have no response to that, Mr. Paytow.
It's a special treat when he joins us.
That's my honor. Anytime you want me.
Thank you.
I've got a couple of quick updates for the rest of this report, and then I got 2 things to pass out for you guys. First on the staff update, the former Bose Coral Reef, they have resubmitted plans, and those are currently not going to be going next to Lynch's.
Can you say the first one again? My brain just caught up to you.
That's okay. Bose Coral Reef, they've had to resubmit plans. They have done that now, and they are under review by the planning department. So they are under plan review.
Okay.
Yep. Southern Grounds was originally going to go next door to Lynch's. They are now going where the Casa Maria is, down in the white 2-story building. They are now locating there. Surprise, fun fact. The original Southern Ground site, however, is still being developed, and it is being developed for a new unnamed tenant. When we have the name and are able to share, we will absolutely do so. We genuinely just don't have the name of the tenant. A new Florida statute came out. It's Florida Statute 715-075. Nothing really pressing that'll impact us very much, but it just regards private parking lots and charging for parking. It doesn't necessarily, like I said, directly impact us, but it's just good information to know. It puts some restrictions and requirements on what private parking lot operators can do in the way of charging for parking and how they have to go about that. The Florida Special District Handbook was updated, and those changes are beginning October 1st. They require new goals and objectives and performance measures and standards. You've got to have your goals and objectives as part of your annual reporting, and your performance measures and standards regarding those goals and objectives. That is also all being featured in our downtown plan update to make sure we're falling in line with what those new requirements are. Our communications newsletter is going out this week. If you're not signed up for that, and you want to be, you should be. It's got a lot of great information, a lot of really good content about things not just in CRA, but citywide. So if that's something you want to be signed up for, feel free to go to the website or just email me and tell me, hey, sign me up, and I'll take care of it for you. Our Pier parking lot contractor, I spoke to them today, right before this meeting actually. This is a very last minute update. They are planning to have the final numbers to us this week, and based off of their schedule, they can tentatively start work on the entryway the 1st or 2nd week of October, which falls nicely in line with the start of our new fiscal year. The Passive Park, we have an internal meeting tomorrow with engineering team to go over the needs that we have there for infrastructure and lighting for safety. So I'll update you guys next time on where that goes. Hopefully I'll have a lot more than an update. Hopefully I'll have documents for that meeting. And a couple of upcoming meetings. We have got the City Council meeting September 3rd. That'll be their budget adoption. We've got a council briefing on September 9th. At that, we will be talking about First Street and the parking issues, similar to what we're going to be talking about today with you guys. And then also the outdoor dining program. That was a pilot program, if you all remember, and it actually expires in January. So we're going to talk with council. We've actually gotten some feedback from the businesses and the building owner on the success of the program, and we have their support, and they will also be attending that briefing. I spoke with them today, so they'll be at the briefing as well to talk about how great it's been for their businesses. If you have not been able to attend an LDC workshop yet and you would like to still attend, there is one more the 28th this week at 6 p.m. It is for council, but it will be the same content and same information, so feel free to come. Let's see what else we got. We've got a briefing on October 14th with City Council to talk about the pier entryway art and the Ritz parking lot and kind of what council wants to see done with that Ritz parking lot and kind of next steps with that. October the 28th, we have our meeting. At that meeting, we will have year-end fund balance for the downtown and south end to adopt, and then we'll talk about some different public art stuff at that meeting. Our meeting in November, we have a resolution for support for sidewalk dining already on that agenda. Just again, council will vote at the first of the year whether to extend the program or not and to implement it in other areas. So we'll bring you guys a resolution of support or not if you choose to not support. And at our December meeting, we're gonna do something a little different at that meeting. Recently, I've been enrolled actually in the last few months in the Florida Redevelopment Association Redevelopment Administrator Program. I am now 4 for 4 on my exams. I have one more exam in October and I will be a certified redevelopment administrator. And I want to, in December, bring some materials that I'm working with Florida Redevelopment Association on back to this board. We have a lot of new members, a lot of things have changed at the state level. We're all the time getting new legislation, so we just kind of want to do a really quick refresher course on why we exist, what we do, what the statute requires of us, how things should go, and just kind of end the year on something fun, right? You guys get to listen to me talk for 2 hours, so you're welcome. And then I got with me today a summary of our downtown plan update. This is not the full plan, this is really just like high level stuff, what we're gonna have in that plan. We will bring you the draft, the final draft version next month. And then we also have, for Lakeland Plaza, we don't have the final numbers yet. We've seen the numbers, but they were not certified by engineering team with half, so we're not gonna give the numbers out, but we do have what will be included in their next phase of their scope. And so I have that for you guys to look at as well. Pass these out. The Half and Associates one specifically, in your spare time, since we know all of you have so much of it, please take a look at this when you can. We know everyone's busy, so when you can take a look at this half document between now and next month, I'll email you guys a more specific deadline, kind of like give your comments, questions, concerns to me. But if you can email those to me, and then I can kind of relay those back and forth, and we can talk with our consultants, and then next month we can bring you the final scope, and then we'll have the fee associated. And then just really quick, your downtown plan document, where it says intro, Heart of Jack's Beach, that's gonna be kind of a front page document. That paragraph at the bottom of that page is what that currently reads. We'll have an image of the downtown and how it's, a central hub, and then we've got a summary of the plan, what our redevelopment powers are, redevelopment requirements, RD zoning, redevelopment objectives, and then a whole section on the CAPE program. One big thing we added to this is a snapshot of all the previous updates and all the resolution numbers when they were adopted and what they did. And so that way, 10 years from now, somebody's trying to figure out when or why we did something, it's very easy for them to quickly reference this in the plan. We're also listing out all the redevelopment powers that are granted by the state of Florida, and more specifically, the relationship that our agency in particular has with our city council and how things operate. And then we also have a whole section on the new statutory requirements that are in effect October 1st regarding our reporting. You go to the last section, all these strategic priorities. Keep in mind, these are the objectives. These aren't intended to be specific projects. Those will come in a different section, but this is broad and it allows us some flexibility, and it kind of just keeps everyone on track with what the city mission and vision are, what their strategic plan objectives are, and it aligns ours with theirs. So again, we will have the final version of this. I think right now we're at about 28-ish pages for our plan. I fully intend there will be several more added. We'll bring that to you next month. If you go over this also in your spare time, questions, anything that doesn't make sense, or you just want to know more about it, same thing, reach out to me. I'm happy to answer an email, talk on the phone, or if you want to come in and talk about either of the documents I gave you, we can do that too, whatever everyone's comfortable with.
Thank you for the input. Let me just ask one quick question in reference to the health proposal. Is this now just for that northern, not northern, but western third
Yes.
of the plaza? That's all this proposal is? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Just wanted to make sure I understood.
That's a great question. I did not clarify that. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Yep.
Francis?
Okay, so that was like a massive no.
Don't worry, I'm going to email this all to you.
So inside the staff report, there's a lot of other things we generally kind of ask questions on.
Mhm.
Maybe they'll fall underneath old business instead. some of those are the knockout list for the multiple things in the downtown area we want fixed and cleaned up, including the signs, and the one still has a hole in it, 3 years ago. I'd like to know, are we going to get some kind of update on the knockoff list, like the ballards that are fixed, the brick around the one thing that's broke, like, are we gonna get some kind of ETA on any of that?
I'll be honest, as things get fixed, we know they're fixed, we can look at them and also see that they've been fixed. We've not compiled an email or felt necessary to email, if that's something that we need to change.
Well, I thought one of the things that I didn't hear on your list that we were gonna have a discussion with the council about was getting our ambassador, or whatever you wanna call it, the person who's going to be our honeydew, who's gonna go around and do all these things and harass the departments that need it, so that that list doesn't get lost. I mean,
Maybe we misunderstood, but we felt like we hadn't touched on that high level with council, and at that time, it was just kind of, there wasn't a temperature for it, and then we ended up implementing the construction position that was funded through Public Works, but at this time, the consensus was no.
okay. I was not under that impression. I keep pushing for more help because I heard it be, well, that's what we hired you for, and we're all like, no, that's not what we hired her for. And I remember you specifically saying, that's not my
Yeah.
role. And I remember us pushing for an ambassador for the area, and it's not on the list. So
Yeah.
we're gonna have these discussions about Ritz, which we've had multiple discussions about as well. I
Yeah.
think our knockoff list, which is the keep it nice and clean, is being ignored because nobody wants to do it.
I will
Nobody
say,
wants
I
do
have to
it.
give some credit where credit's due. Parks and Recreation has stepped up in a big way where they didn't have to, and if there is any one person, I would say it's Trevor Hughes, who, if there is something wrong, if I don't see it, because he is out and about every day, or his team is out, and they are all, Trevor all the time will send me a picture, hey, this bollard's broken, it's gonna be,
So in a way, you guys take care of that? You're
I
doing
mean,
that, in a way.
he
That's my official title.
has been phenomenal with that. He'll send me it, and then, or if he has a PO coming in that's for something that needs to be repaired, he'll say, hey, we noticed this, we went ahead and got a quote, we're submitting it now, can you get it approved? So I feel like when it comes to that aspect,
Someone taking ownership.
whether
of the
it's
area.
Trevor's job or not, God bless him,
So
he's
as long
doing a
as
wonderful
someone's
job.
taking ownership of the area, I applaud you, thank you, but that doesn't mean that certain things aren't being fixed, like signs and stuff, like.
And that's a
those-
much larger conversation, unfortunately.
Right, well, as long as that's not being removed, because the other ambassador was also supposed to be one of those people that we could help people understand what's going on with the area and the development and stuff in front of their place, because we had talked about how even though you'd have a person on the job site whose job, they weren't really communicating with people. So I was just
Mhm.
curious about that, in here.
Yeah.
And then, let's go to that second comment you made, which was Southern Ground wasn't moving in.
Well, they are, to a different location.
To the place that was supposed to be custom agreed upon for the kind of establishment that was gonna go in that location. Because we're not doing anything with the liquor license in that location.
I think I'm missing.
I'm missing
question.
something, so Space Nights at Lunch is,
Mm-hmm.
which they own the property behind as well, a whole like big space.
Mm-hmm.
That was an approved plan to not have any more liquor. So we know for sure that this new tenant is gonna go from coffee to something else that doesn't have
Well, I mean,
liquor.
there's regulations, and they can only do so much as allowed by the state anyway. Now, if the state, if whatever is allowed there by the state, we can't, Heather, correct me if I'm wrong, we can't restrict them if it's an allowed use.
Yeah, right now, they couldn't, sorry. Right now, a drinking establishment, a standalone bar couldn't go in that location because of our distance requirements. So it could be a restaurant that serves alcohol to some level, depending on what, what license they're eligible for, but we don't know who that tenant is, but they'll have to meet all of our local requirements and the state licensing requirements as well. We just don't know who it's gonna be.
All right, thank you.
I'd just like to add to the comments that Francis made. It might be worthy of a further conversation in one of our upcoming meetings to discuss the downtown, just the quality of downtown. We've talked around on several different issues, as Francis mentioned, finding somebody who would be an ambassador or a firm that could handle improving the downtown, taking care of small problems
weekend.
You know, the plaza lawn looks terrible, it needs some help. There were cars parked on it a couple of weekends ago that really, you know, damaged that lawn.
Yeah, I mean, those are where we're gonna have to
You know,
weigh
it's
pros
just
and
that
cons.
there's a lot of things down there that could be improved, and at one point in time, we did talk about having some individual or firm that could really focus on those things.
Right, and then at that same meeting, we talked about how Parks already has all the contracts, and we all agreed that Parks and their contractors were gonna do that, which they are, they have been. All the medians and planter beds on First Street down towards the pier parking lot have been done swimmingly so well. In fact, Springfield's actually reached out to see if we'll do the ones in front of their building because they like the other ones so much. You know, and then with Latham Plaza, you know, it's gonna be one of those things where the lawn is damaged right now because we had a car show, because we were hearing for so long, we want events, we want programming, we want other things. So when other things and more things are gonna go there, it's gonna get damaged, and unfortunately, this time of year, it's really hard to keep grass nourished.
It's what we still look like and what that downtown feels. I mean, I was thrilled to hear you say that 1st of October, we're going to have somebody in there doing something on the pier, parking lot.
Yeah.
That looks terrible down there. The sign that was supposedly just put up that has the QR code on it, that you
Someone
can
ripped
find
it
out what's going on. Number one, you can't even get to any information. Number two, it's sitting in the dirt on the ground. It's just, what are we trying to do downtown? What do we want the downtown to be? And I think it would be worthy of some further conversation by this board in a future meeting to really get our arms around it. What's happening in the nitty-gritty. If you've got answers to them, that's great. If there are things that we're missing, then we need to address them in some way.
Sure. I think a lot of that is also answered when we do our budget every year. I mean, you know, we've got a pretty clear outline of where our money is going in FY '25, and again, I think a lot of that is covered. We can continue to, every time something gets repaired or fixed, inform everyone, but, you know, a couple months back, it was kind of agreed upon if there was no update in that staff report because it was getting so large to stop updating. So, you let us know what you want, we'll update you when we have updates, but sometimes things just take quite a while, unfortunately, and there may not be an update for a few months. That's why, you know, our public works director at a meeting, I think a week or two ago, said, I'm gonna come back and update everyone when I have updates, but unfortunately, right now, I have to just stand in front and say, hey, I don't have anything right now, and that's just the truth. You know, when we have it, we'll update you.
Moving on, just a question out of depth, I'm assuming this would fall under staff report. There's been a number of properties that have recently been sold in the downtown area, around, what is it, 3rd Street, 3rd Avenue North and 1st Street. Any information that you have on that as to what the new owners are proposing to do or thinking about?
Yeah, they're gonna kill me for this. When we have an update, we'll share.
Okay.
Not at this time, no.
Okay. Anybody else have anything?
Yes, Gary, the Times Union ran an article on that, giving the restaurateur's opinion of what he'd been told and what he was going to have to do. He'd been told that the hotel was going to be put into the premises and that he had to terminate and leave by the end of September. And that's Times Union 2 days ago.
Thank you.
But that's just his comments, and no one else was in there.
1 week.
Anything else in reference to the staff report?
Not at this time. I'm sure more things will pop into my head over the next week, and I plan to sort of take the summary of what we talked about and draft that up, because I know I threw a lot of dates, a lot of topics, and a lot of meetings at you, so I will send that to you so you have a hard copy of that, so we don't miss anything.
Next item on our agenda is all business. Does anybody have any items? Okay. Moving on to new business. First item under new business is to adopt or deny resolution number 2025-02, which amends the fiscal year 2025 budget to provide funding for the amendment to the collective bargaining agreement for the FOP for downtown Cape officers. We have somebody that's presenting.
We do, just to discuss it, but before we get into that, I do notice that on the new business, The line item and the resolution number do not match up, so when we make a motion to adopt or deny, it should say FY 2024 budget, and the resolution number, or maybe it should say 25 budget, but the resolution number is 2024 02, not 2502. So there was a typo on our end, so I apologize. We have our CFO, Ms. Ashley Gossett, here with us, and she can kind of explain what this is. Just from our perspective though, this is the financial impact of an amendment, and our portion will be about just over $71,000. One of the areas that, after talking with finance and administration internally, it made the most sense to pull the funds out of incentive, because those are programming funds, they're not capital funds, so they're not directly tagged to a specific project. So that was our recommendation, and Ms. Gossett, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Ashley Gossett, CFO. I think Taylor actually covered everything. But no, you're fine. So yes, I was going to bring the attention that we have a Scrivener's error. It's actually resolution 2024-02. And as you guys all are aware, just last month you adopted the fiscal 2025 budget, and it's not even October 1st yet. And I'm back asking for an amendment to a budget that we've not even begun. Since last month, the Fraternal Order of Police and the city have opened up the last year of the collective bargaining agreement to address wages to remain competitive in the market and to kind of meet our neighbors where they are. And so the agreement increases the starting wage for police officers by 23%, up to $65,312. And then other officers are all going to increase by 7.6%. And because this is at the beginning of the fiscal year, and because the police have been very successful with their recruiting efforts, we did not want to wait to make an amendment. We're going to think positively, and hopefully that will be staffed fully at the beginning of the year and throughout the year. And so the estimated budgetary impact of this change is $71,106. At this time, we do not have unassigned fund balance to draw from for this. So we recommended, as Taylor said, to take it from the incentive program because it would not be disruptive to day-to-day operations or service levels or to the projects that we already have ongoing. And so this budget amendment simply moves money from one program to another, and it does not increase the overall expense budget. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. I just want to confirm we don't have any more applications for the incentives for this year. It ends in October, right?
We have none right now, no, and I'll be honest, none have expressed an interest right now. I have had some that have said 6 months, 8 months from now they may have an interest, but right now that I am aware of, we do not have interest.
So in the very short term, 2 months, we're probably just, that money's just going to have to be reassigned somewhere anyway, and.
I mean, at this point, I don't even know that someone can get an application in time.
And get reviewed and what have you. Okay, and what is the current balance? Do we know what the current balance is in that account?
It's, off my head, don't quote me, I think we're sitting around the high 200s, if I'm remembering correctly. I could be mixing this up with another account, so if that's the case, please forgive me, but
That's fine, that's what I needed to
I
know.
think we have ample funds.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? Commander Crumley, would you want to address this issue just a little bit, give a little more clarity as to the overall impact that hopefully this will have for the police department?
Hey, good afternoon, Tommy Crumley, Detective Division Commander. As far as it's been discussed with numerous people, obviously the contract being ratified by the FOP and the city makes us very competitive and top in the game in our region, in the Northeast Florida region. It is, I would like to say, our recruiting efforts have been successful, even though we've kind of faced certain droughtage, if that's such a word. It's been tough. It's been a national problem. Let's not kid ourselves. We can talk plainly. It's not been a very popular time to get into police work. So the ability of us as an agency to be where we're at now, where the city and the council has put us, it totally, completely opens experienced officers all the way down to brand new starting officers. So it's opened a lot of doors for us.
Thank you. Any questions for the committee? With that, I assume we need to do a motion on resolution number 2024-02.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to adopt or approve the resolution number 2024-02, amending the fiscal year 2024-25 budget.
Five.
25 budget to provide funding for the amendment to the collective bargaining agreement with the FOP and downtown Cape officers.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Yes, and I believe, Ron, since you were here, you're gonna be our 5th voting member of the day. So congrats, you're up first, Mr. Ron Whittington.
Vote yes.
Okay, Mr. Thad Mosley.
Yes.
Mr. Gary Paytown.
Yes.
Ms. Frances Pawlowski.
Yes.
Ms. Megan Edwards.
Yes.
All right,
Thank you all. I think
thank you.
this is
Thanks, Ashley.
a wonderful opportunity to take the city to a different level.
Sorry.
So thank you. Next item on our agenda is items for discussion, and I think staff will probably do this
Yes, sir.
conversation.
Yes, sir. All right, and we also have our Parks and Recreation Director here as well. I asked him to come just because he sat in on all of our public meetings and one-on-one meetings over this topic. So if there are any questions that I cannot answer, I know Jason will be able to. No pressure, Jason. So really where we're at is we've had a lot of internal discussions. Obviously, the planned parking is not moving forward down on Ponce de Leon. That is no more. We want to reassure everyone it is not going to happen the way it was proposed. And we kind of came back and said, okay, we're hearing from residents that the problem has changed significantly over the last few months. You know, as I said before, unfortunately, sometimes it takes us a long time to do things. We have a lot of rules we have to follow. So a problem that was there maybe 6 months ago, by the time we got through to a process where we could have the funds and procurement and actually be able to draft up some plans for the idea, well, now the problem is not as it was. So we're trying to be proactive here, and one of the options that we have looked at is leaving Ponce de Leon alone, leaving it as it is, and adding some additional bike racks within the park. We did hear from several residents down there that they go up there on Saturday, they just know where to park their bike, they have to change to a fence post or a tree. And we also know we love some fun, unique bike racks. We see them downtown, so that would be a really cool opportunity to do some really whimsical, cool bike racks that go with the playground. And again, that is attracting locals. You know, you're not gonna ride your bike from 20 miles away. Well, there will be someone that does. Most people will not ride a bike from 20 or 30 miles away to go to a park. Same thing, we also looked at, and we did talk with the fire marshal about taking some of the spaces internal to the park and actually converting them into low-speed vehicle parking. So it would be for your mopeds, your scooters, or golf carts. So again, attracting that local crowd. Another thing is implementing no parking signs along Ponce de Leon. I'll be very honest, I think this option would get very mixed feedback. I think you would see half, and just my opinion from conversations, half would be supportive, and I don't think half would like it because they are very limited over there on their parking as is. And if the parking is not a huge issue anymore, you know, I know a lot of residents said, you know, we don't want to see no parking signs because then when we have family over or friends or kid's birthday party, we got nowhere to go. And then for us, our end of it, okay, if it's a Saturday and someone's having a child's birthday party, where are they going to tell their friends to park now if we have no parking signs in park? So then we're going to kind of start to create a different issue. So that's something I think to discuss and really decide what direction needs to be taken there. And then something else that came up was adding a sidewalk along that entire section. So essentially it still creates a parking problem where people really can't park on the sidewalk. But a lot of residents did say they would like to see a sidewalk and additional entry points with those fence breaks. So really, oh, I'm sorry, one more. We would like to temporarily, not the police cameras, nothing as high-tech as what they have, but, you know, if you have like wide cameras or doorbell cameras at your house, just your very basic cameras, we would obviously have to work with IT to make sure it's appropriate, and we're not gonna get ourselves into trouble with our Wi-Fi and mess anything up for the city. But something that Jason and Trevor brought up that I think is a great idea is to maybe for 6 months, have temporary Wi-Fi enabled cameras, just kind of at various points around the parking lot, that when we're not here on the weekends, they're constantly recording, so we can really look at that footage and see, okay, on Saturday in March, it's beautiful out, from 8 a.m. to 2, the parking lot was slammed full. Or maybe we see that it's not, or you know, whatever. So that gives us actual data to now be able to take and say, okay, we monitored this for so many months, here's what we saw, these are the really peak days, here's how we can mitigate that. And rather than just kind of throwing darts, you know, in the dark here, we've got a data-driven reason for doing something. And yeah, we really kind of open that up to you guys for discussion, and what would you like to see happen, and where you want to see this go, and we'll also provide an update to council in the future as well on whatever comes from our conversations with you guys today.
Any comments from the board members?
I think that sounds fine. But some things to think about for the future, particularly as the utilization of the park potentially increases to the point where it's not as useful for Jackson Beach residents as we would like for it to be. And these are all things that have been done in
Right.
Jacksonville Beach. And I'll just give you a list to think about, not for now, but for down the line as the situation evolves. I believe it will continue to change. But, and three of these would require some legal input before you even thought about them.
Yeah.
One would be pedestrian access passes for Jacksonville Beach residents, full stop. And a single point of access and some fencing. Not that we want to do that now, but something to think about as a control measure. And when I see a place totally full at Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock, we're not that far away from down the line thinking about control measures. The other thing, and this has been done, it was done just south of downtown. The mayor, prior to our mayor, it was one of his campaign points, make street parking for residents only. And that would have a combining effect with perhaps making paid parking in the park. It would keep people from being forced out and parking where residents only could park. These are just things to keep in mind that are control measures to control the number of people and the number of cars in any area. Something else that's been done on Ocean Drive some years ago was no parking on the street. Now, I don't think that would sell real well in this neighborhood because these guys don't even have room for sidewalks in the right of ways in the street north of it. The water meter's right by the curb, and the street's not wide enough to park two cars in it, even though neither side is marked no parking. But again, it's been done before, and it's something you just remember as a tool in the box to control volume and access. The other thing is automobile passes for Jacksonville Beach. Automobiles only can get in. I'm not talking about paid parking with pass for the beach. I'm talking about Jacksonville Beach vehicles only. And again, this is a legal question. But we pay for that park, and it was designed for us to use, not designed to serve the gazillions, in particular northern St. Johns County. Nothing against those guys, but you know, maybe they should have their own park somewhere. I could suggest a couple of places actually, where they cut off South Beach Boulevard instead of letting it go through and giving us an
some bicycle wrecks. That's a pretty,
100%.
so is everyone okay with, while we're getting the cameras and working with IT and making sure we're, have our legal rights and all those ducks in a row? I think bike racks are relatively low hanging fruit, and that's something that can also accommodate.
Yeah, but as long as we find a good location for going to use them, and I'll tell you why, because I've been down by the park, and many times the kids will use their bikes on that skate portion of
Sure.
they're riding their bikes up and down the slopes and hills of the skate park. Many of them leave their electric bikes just laying all over the place as they come zooming in off of Osceola and so forth. It's going to be a challenge, where do we put the bike racks where they'll physically end up using them?
In other words, you don't want to be like the Publix parking lot where you have to walk away from the building in your car. The cars, you would like it next to where they're going to use it. That's what you're saying. I got you.
We'll have to definitely be strategic and make sure we're putting them where the family or the mom with 2 toddlers or whomever are riding their bikes, what are the locations that they're gonna visit the most? Obviously,
Will you be
playground.
moving forward with the e-travel too, or just the bikes? Or do we need to say both? E-travel's gonna take more work and more planning and more whatnot.
Probably, I would think so.
Yeah, I'm 100%, I don't know the rest of you, but I'm 100%, please put more breakfast.
And then, Mr. Chairman, if I may, something that I did not mention in my initial kind of rambling about this, that I just remembered, is we've also worked with communications. This also came up, this is a great idea from the public input, are some maps that we're gonna look at getting creative that we can have installed in various points around that park. You can walk around the park, there's all kinds of things to do. So having maps that have QR codes on them that say, have you seen this park? And you scan the QR code, it takes you to a page, it shows you all the amenities. So if you get there and the playground is slammed, you don't know where to go, you're stressed out, you scan it, it shows you, okay, Gonzalez Park has a brand new, beautiful playground, very similar, you can go there. So that's something that we're also working with our communications team to draft up, so we can not tell everyone, go away, we don't want anyone here, but we can say, hey, it's full, let's spread the wealth a little bit, let's go other places. We do have other amenities, and we have other really beautiful parks, thanks to our Parks and Rec team.
That's another part of that tool chest we're going to have to use to be able to
Absolutely.
gain our control. So are you needing some information else at this point, or?
I mean, at this point, everyone nodded their head and gave a thumbs up that bike racks are, everyone's comfortable with bicycle racks. That is a low enough expense, and it's something that's allowed for under some of our accounts already, so I don't think we need anything right now. As this moves forward, same thing with the cameras, we're not installing $300,000 cameras. These are gonna be super, super basic, just for a very simple need, so they fall under that threshold where we can just kind of administratively handle those. And at this time, I don't think we need a formal vote. When we do, rest assured, we will bring it to you, I promise.
Check with Public Works, I think they've got some bike racks in storage.
I'll have to make sure they're CRA bike rack. You know what, I do know we have some CRA bike racks, but again, they're from the downtown district, and I can't use them in the south end if they're from downtown, unless we buy them from ourselves,
Yes.
which I have to ask legal and finance. Like I said, you guys, it is complicated trying to do stuff sometimes, okay?
Well, my question was just going to be, do we need a design for our facilities down there? Or are we going
She'll
to?
come,
I was gonna say, we-
surprise you.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go and just start putting random things up and I'll surprise you. I'm just kidding. No, we will, a little bit kind of like, not as quite intense as downtown where we had multiple meetings where we voted and decided on these animals. I think we won't go quite as crazy as the giant sharks that we have in front of Francis's building. But, we will, the playground's brightly colored, especially in the in the bike racks around the playground. I think we would like to see at least bright colors. But I also know from experience now having these, we need to work closely with, again, Trevor, who helps to maintain the colors on those, because there are certain types that work really well, and there are certain types that aren't. So I'll get with Trevor this week and set up a meeting with he and I to talk about what materials, what works, coloring, that kind of thing. And we do still have our piggyback contract with Clay County, who we originally did all the bike racks through. So it should be relatively easy. But once we have a game plan on, hey, this style, this shape, this color, we will send it out to you guys.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I take it that's all that you have in reference to the South Beach Park at this point.
Yes, sir.
Then the next item under discussion is the First Street pedestrian
larger problem with First Street. No, everybody in this room knows it. We all know it. We've seen it. To your point, Gary, we have paper issues, not just aesthetically, safety, style, which way the street is going to go. We have urban trails projects planned down there. We have a ton of things happening with First Street. But what we talked about at our last meeting was, okay, yes, we know that down the road this is going to be a much larger conversation. This is going to be a massive capital project, no doubt. How can we mitigate some of these problems right now, also while being fiscally responsible? So what we've looked at are options that are aesthetically pleasing now, are useful now, that people can actually utilize. We did talk to the fire marshal. I've learned to talk to the fire marshal before. We have ideas. These are all okayed by fire marshal. And the big thing with these is these are all something that if and when, whether it's a year from now or 10 years from now, First Street has changed, direction has changed, streetscaping has changed, these can all be relocated. So these aren't something that are going to be there and then go to waste, which was a big thing for us. So first of all, these are some examples. I actually just saw a really pretty example of one of these in downtown Orlando this past week. Are these larger raised planter beds. Relatively simple. As we're doing all these replantings, as we're getting all of these quotes in to redo the downtown, you know, we can have these large round ones, rectangle ones, but where those would essentially go are on those street sections where you've got a really big gap between two ground level planter beds, and people are really parking on the sidewalk because they think it's parallel parking. If you're not from here, you don't know any better, and you see two cars already doing it, you know, you're going to do the same. So this was something we were looking at. And again, we've already got piggyback contracts in place. These are typically an in-stock item. Parks and Recreation can help us, and again, highlighting you that this is a solution that once we have that permanent solution, we can then relocate these to be used somewhere else or in a park. Benches. This is something we have to be really careful with. I do not feel the triangle benches that we already have would have worked to eliminate the problems we're having. And then you run into a lot of other issues that can come of having this style benches. After talking, you know, safety concerns, being as these things are going to be right up against a roadway, even though people are supposed to go slow, we all know that's not always the case. And if you've got a bench that had an open back, like our triangle one, someone sits down, they tip over backwards, they're in the road, we now have a huge problem. So I think benches, while at first seemed like a really great idea, there are ways to be done, but this may not be the best use of. You know, again, they would have to have backs for safety. They would have to have bars, you know, in the seats, so you can't necessarily lay out across it. It would provide places for pedestrians to sit, but we kind of already did that in other places, so do we need them? Really, is the safety concern worth the temporary solution, or can we utilize some other ones? And then another one, not this many, not this ugly, I promise, this was just the best picture I found, are these were bollards, you know, back probably 2 years ago when we picked bollards for downtown. We picked some round ones and we picked those kind of futuristic looking ones. We have not been able to utilize round bollards yet. These could be something where in some of the spaces you kind of maybe alternate. You have a planter bed and then you have kind of maybe two round bollards. And they don't have to be so repetitive that they're right on top of each other. They just need to be large enough to prevent people from driving up on the sidewalk and parking their car. And again, these are already in the plan. They were already previously chosen. We still have our piggyback contract, and if anyone ever wanted to, if they were solid concrete, you could make them really artistic. I'm just saying.
Comments? What are your questions?
So in regards to the planters, do we have the infrastructure in place, or how far would we need the infrastructure in place to have it to clear up the water?
I'll be honest, we have not gone that far.
Because it's in the middle of a whole bunch of paving
Yep.
areas, and you're gonna have to put water in.
Yeah.
And if we don't have our ambassador downtown watering regularly, there is gonna turn to ashtrays.
Yeah,
So I'm not a big fan
That's a great one.
unless we have water
Okay,
as a solution.
got it.
The bollards, I like the idea of them, however, you're gonna have the same issue. You're gonna have kids, however, bobbing up and down and running around them into the street. So I don't know what the right solution
outfits have been maintained traditionally up and down Fourth Avenue North, which is not well at all, ever, since they were put in so deeply some years ago. Round logs, it's pretty hard to get up on top of one and jump from one to the other. I would suggest that they might be the safest and best possible thing to use. I think that the benches have their major negative issues, not just people lounging on them, but, I mean, people will run into them, fall over them, you name it. I think the round bollards are the right size. Or maybe even make them triangles, I don't know. Figure out something.
That'll make it a lot more difficult. I will say,
That's all they are.
I know.
Figure out something that people can't mess up,
yeah, okay.
because these raised beds, I mean,
I
just use
understand.
your imagination.
Yes, sir, I understand.
Thank you.
Understand.
Do we still have any of the tall, nasty bollards we were replacing with the more futuristic ones in stock that we could just throw up and not have to pay?
I am happy to check in the storeroom at procurement, or actually over O&M, and I'll see. I doubt it. The only fear I have is I know all of those bollards, those tall weird ones, are not all identical. We have some that are futuristic, we have some that are plain, we have some like the ones in Latham, and I don't want to get ourselves in a position where we're now just
Yeah,
redoing our current problem.
I know, because technically we don't need them to have lights like the
Yeah.
ones we had, so if they were taken down because the light wasn't working, then it's not like we're needing it for that, but if we kept, I don't know, I just was
Yeah.
curious. I mean, I agree, I mean, planners as nice as they are, they're gonna be a complete nightmare if we don't have some kind of maintenance.
Yeah, I agree.
But I will tell you, and it just is it was kind of a joke under my breath, and I probably shouldn't say it verbally, but we have drunk people, maybe the officers will all agree with us, they will see those and they will still think that they can do it, they're 5 years old, they're gonna jump, and they're gonna visit our nice Baptist ER, and that's pretty much what there is gonna happen, but they need to be positioned properly, I think, is what it would
Yeah.
be down to.
What's the term for the stuff that they put in front of fortifications, sharp pointy sticks and there's a term for that.
I mean, I can look into those now as the attorney. I don't know that that would be favored.
Getting over the side, sorry.
To your point, Francis, though, to your point, that safety spectrum, there's nothing there now.
Yeah,
So
that's
kids that
true.
are gonna be running in it, they can just run into the street right now. You know, at least having something, you know, again, the goal is not to solve this permanently. We know that that's not gonna happen in the next 6 months. That is a larger conversation that goes to council, that has to do with urban trails. A ton of things happening downtown right now, they're just out of our control. But we do want to do what we can to try to fix some of this now, and I do think that the bollards could be a really good option to deter people, at least from parking there, because that's the biggest complaint at least we hear is the parking problems. I drove it usually every week, a couple of times a week, just to look, and the other day I went every single section, and I have witnesses, I have people with me, I said, y'all come on, let's go look at something. Every single part where there was a break big enough in between the planter beds, there were cars. Completely up on the sidewalk, sticking the back ends out on the road, and it's just not safe. We want to walkable downtown, and when you have cars on sidewalks, it's really hard to walk.
Are they not tollway areas?
Mm-mm.
Why are they not?
It was designed to have parking there. That's what's super badly done.
And it was unfortunately designed to have parking in some of them, but not all of them, and it was never designated, and so
Can we designate them?
we can. I don't think we'll see a lot of people know. I mean, people have been told, hey, you can't park here. They don't care.
There's some very unusual,
Do the business,
there's some
do the
very-
businesses not care?
I mean, I don't want to speak to that. I can't. I'm not sure. I do know I have some people pull up, get out of their car in front of their business and go straight in. So, you know, it's convenience. I mean, devil's advocate, I get it. It's right in front of your business and people are already parking everywhere else and there's a spot in front of your business, whether you know it's to be used or not. If everyone else is doing it, you're going to do it kind of mentality, I think is kind of the problem we're facing. And towing could be an option, but the problem is when it's happening, so this is city property, right? When it's happening the most, it's gonna be Friday night, Saturday, Sunday. Our police officers obviously already have enough, I don't say worry about, we have enough to do in the downtown. Is that gonna even be a good use of their time now to have to go call a tow truck, or who's gonna call a tow truck on a Saturday? I mean, you know. I mean, I think it's an option, I just don't know how we run it.
Yeah, and it's, how
solution that can work for now while we plan for the long term. Here's what the agency discussed, and then Heather has other things that she's gonna talk to council about, just so we can start kind of getting those wheels spinning on a permanent solution, because it is becoming more and more problematic. The more popular we get, the more nice restaurants, the more dining, the more things we have to do down here, and it's the worse it's gonna get.
And, because what you showed last, was it in Texas or where?
In Ohio.
Or somewhere, it was really cool, and I felt like this, our city is kind of.
Yeah, and I'll kind of add to what Taylor said. The street was designed to be a festival street, which means the festival kind of expands out into it. So parking, in my opinion and perspective, was almost an afterthought. So there was no signage, and then people started parking everywhere, and then someone said, well, it makes sense here to let them park, but not over here. So the signage is all over the place. So like in front of Surfer, you can't park during these hours, but in front of Lynch's, you can't park ever, or something like that. So it's inconsistent with where you can park and how and what times and when. And so our goal is to make it consistent. So maybe there's just 2 places you can have, rideshare drop off and pick up, and max 15 minutes. Everywhere else, no parking. Or maybe we're able to have some room to add some ADA spaces. So
About ADA, we want to keep a couple of ADA spaces where
we have the
could.
room, yeah. So it's just we're trying to fix that inconsistency and make it safer for everyone that's down there.
Just my comments in reference to what you presented, I, personally feel that the bollards and the benches would be the way to go. I think architecturally we could make that work very nicely and create some interesting spaces along there for seating as well as from an aesthetic perspective with the bollards. Question I just have is how many do we think we need to, take care of this?
Yeah, I knew someone was gonna ask.
Out there, really counted it yet, but
Sure.
it's something we need to go out there and take a look at and really get our arms
Yeah.
around.
We've preliminary, and now when I say preliminary, this is not me with a tape measure figuring out exactly how much distance, but we did look at, because something that's come up internally several times is, if you're in that core area of downtown and you do have accessibility issues, there are not a lot of really close spaces for ADA, people who need those spaces. And then if we don't provide at least maybe 4, let's say, throughout that small section, are we deterring people from trying to come to our downtown because we're not being, accommodating? So we look to try to see like where we can fit maybe 3 or 4, very clearly marked, very clear, these are ADA parallel spaces only. So to your point, if someone is in an ADA spot without a tag, yes, absolutely, they can very easily be towed. And we don't have to be the only ones to call that in. If someone can see a car that's parked in an accessible spot, we just call it towing. I would think somewhere in the realm of, I would say anywhere from 25 to 40, depending on how far apart we space them, the size, if we're talking small, are we talking target size, are we, what are we looking at? That is very, like I said, that's very preliminary. That's just me walking, glancing, and looking.
It's just something we need to get our arms around, get a sense for. And,
Sure.
to address the ADA just a little bit.
Sure.
There are ADA parking
Mhm.
spaces in the avenues and each
Yes.
of the end zones. There are identified
Yep.
ADA spots. So,
Yep.
if we needed another one, we could make one of those
That's a great point.
avenue spots into an ADA spot also.
Yeah.
And really just get the cars off of it. So
Okay.
we get the parked cars off of First Street. That would
Yeah.
be my recommendation.
Okay, now I like that. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any other comments? Do you need anything else from us, Taylor?
No, I feel like everyone, at least collectively, is like, okay, bollards could work. I feel like we've kind of all also collectively been like, let's not do raised planter beds, so I'm good with that. Benches are still kind of iffy, and I don't know that for safety reasons those would be the best choice, but we'll still look at some options for those, but I think our primary focus will be bollards.